Hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and welcome to Mythic Bastionland. These are the quick start rules for playing a knight. Yes, playing a knight. And the link for finding this game, a little difficult now, but if you know anything about the tabletop role-playing game Into the Odd or Electric Bastionland, that should lead you to it. But today, we have crossed the pond and are engaging in a cinematic page through of a game known as Mythic Bastionland, where you get to play tonight. Please stick around, pass through the intro, grab your snacks, and join us. So this is Mythic Bastionland, and created by Chris McDowell, and it's pretty funny in our tabletop community about how, especially new players, are concerned about the mythology, the background, the veracity of how realistic or historical Dungeons and Dragons can be. And you give it 5 minutes, and classic fantasy Dungeons and Dragons has very little to do with the reality of medieval life, and more about cinematics and fantasy. Now, Mythic Bastionland takes that, but it really embraces the idea of the cinematic knight. So while we do have plenty of historical records of like Templar knights and the reality of knighthood itself and what it means, but this one is based on the trials of the Knights of the Round Table. You are playing a cinematic, literary knight based in poems and dreams and mythology. And so this specifically is about portraying a knight in that manner. Now, does the game go into a little bit more the what's the word we use today? Problematic areas? No, because this is about playing a game. But if you'd like to, this is a 75 page quick start rules. There was a Kickstarter back in 2023 for this game. I know there was one. I did not support it, but I do have the free quick start rules, and we're going to page through them and take a look at this. So let's see if I can. Ooh, there we go. So here are the notes from during the play testing and changes during the creation of this. Apparently this happens before the setting Into the Odd, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty fun. But for those who create games in the public through playtesting and such, it can go through a lot of iterations. And if you're not used to it, it can be a little bit strange, especially if you are someone who you know your only purpose is like, hey, can I just play the game? And you have this creator who keeps changing it through various iterations. It can be a little bit strange, but for the creator themselves, they understand that hurdle has to be crossed. So these are all the individuals that worked on it, and here are some of the selected inspirations for this game. Cairn, the tabletop role-playing game, Kingdoms, Mouse Ritter. I've never played or owned Mouse Ritter, but I hear people like it. Pendragon's an oldie but goodie, right in here. Yeah, definitely Pendragon. Prince Valiant, the storytelling game, which I actually never heard of till I got the quick start rules. and then Rune Cairn also created here. Some of these indie games have been out for quite a while, and to take a look back at them, remember the words aren't. No matter how long a game has been out, the words haven't reduced in value. So, and then here's a little poem, but we're going to get into what it means to be a knight, how to make a knight. So here's the table of contents, and there's also a hyperlink to get to each portion of it. And as you'll find in the rules in this game, like even the rules themselves kind of immerse you into it. And what I like at the end of this document is they do a classic playthrough where you have like fictional players and game master whatnot, and they do a playthrough, and then next to that you will see Chris McDowell's philosophy on how to handle those situations, from combat to creating myths to quests and how to adjudicate problems. And I just think it's kind of cool. It's a bit of a throwback, but I like it. So here we have Beginnings in Glory. What I like about this as well, and I noticed this with a lot of indie creators, and I really appreciate it, is like trying to put everything on one page or a 2-page spread. It's actually pretty interesting about doing it, because it does take quite a bit of juggling to get all the words and the fonts that you want and all the information you need, and then it puts you in a test to carve away all the extraneous information. And it can throw some individuals the wrong way, because you might read something and it doesn't explain everything, but the indie game creator will understand that, no, I'm not giving you enough information to explain it, but your own imagination will fill in the gaps. And Shadow Dark is happens to be very popular in the lexicon today, simply because of its simplistic writing and basically getting rid of all of the extraneous words. It just complicates things. It's better to have the players themselves fill in the gaps, because we tend to be more creative than maybe even the creator even wanted us to be. So here in Beginnings in Glory, it's about creating the character. And let me page down just a little bit. So we start out with start and scope. The start is what kind of knight you're going to start out to be. And you can start out as like a young adventurer, a courtier, or even a ruler. And then you want the scope. And the scope is basically like, is it going to be like a one-shot adventure? Is it a chronicle or a saga? And depending on how you begin your start, or how many dice you roll for each of your virtues. So let me page up here. So for an adventuring knight, a young knight errant, you begin with a D12 plus a D6 in each virtue. Mature knights start out with a D6. I believe it's gold doubloons. Can't remember. And then there's a D6 and D12, D6 for each virtue. And then mature knights start out with a lot more gold. And then your scope. But of course, as a knight, you're trying to gain glory. And by gaining that glory, you may be able to set your own kingdom. And you can surround yourself with followers and other knights. You bring them in, you protect the land, you build a castle, a fort, or some kind of a stronghold or something. And it becomes the cycle of the thing. This is literally a knight tabletop role-playing game. So you're not going to you're not going to be able to play a knight and someone else goes, I want to play the magic user or the wizard. This isn't that game. And here it talks about on the same page, basically if you complete a myth, you gain a glory. beginning characters start with 0 glory, and you're worthy of leading a war band. Basically, everyone's going to start out in a war band if you prefer. And then as you gain various glory, 3, 6, 9, and 12 glory, you become worthy of either a seat in the council or court, or ruling a holding, or a seat of power, or basically worthy of a city quest. And the city quest basically is making a city, so you can send other people on quests. And then there are other glory by other means. So you can gain glory by basically confronting myths out in the wilderness, or other things such as tournaments, or a large battle, or when the game moves to a new age. So when the game, right here at the very end, when the game moves to a new age, all knights gain 1 glory through serving the realm of maneuvering in court. A new age, you can play a character who is essentially an adolescent moving into maturity and then going into your old age. So there are rules for going into old age and basically retiring your character, or going out with a bang. So here, I'm going to get to your comments in just a minute. So here, this is creating knighthood, and I'm going to pop right over here to a 2-page spread, and let's do it like this. If you take a look at this 2-page spread, each of these pages will be everything that you need on one page, as I mentioned before: beginnings in glory, knighthood, and I think psychologically, when we have these kind of things, let me page down to show you some examples. Basic rules, harm and scars, specifics of combat, warfare. So I'm going to page back up to the knighthood page. But because of having everything on one page, not only can you have it out in play, like even if you're playing online or you have the physical book and you have it available, not only that, but your brain also can find the information very easily, and everybody can be on literally the same page, right? And also reading role-playing games is not like reading a novel. Some people have claimed it's more like reading a religious text, in the sense that it's not holy ground or anything like that, but that you turn to the text that you need at that very moment. And so, no matter how thick the document is, if you know you only need to read the information on one page, players are more likely to embrace it. So here under knighthood, it has a very, very simple beginning. You are knights united by a common oath and visions of the city. You may have dreams of glory, but every knight must accept the risk of death. The seers who knighted you have deemed that you travel as a company. While some of you may rest, roam, or die, your collective journey will be as one. And in this game, it is assumed that seers have knighted you. So a seer could be something like an old hag in the swamp. A seer could be an oracle that stands next to a royal noble family. A seer could be a old woman out in the farmlands where you were a young boy who told you that you must leave the city to go on and try to find fame and glory as a wandering knight or something like that. So now the seers are a little bit mysterious, because the seers are basically a MacGuffin for storytelling, and so the seers can be honorable and just and lead you to an adventure, or a seer could be have dark tidings and have manipulated you, and now you are living a life entwined like a spider's web, engaging you in dark and deceitful actions that you had no part in, or something. So on this same page, knights have 3 virtues, and you roll a d12 plus a d6. In interviews, Chris McDowell was talking about like the die, why use a d12 and a d6 and not your classic OSR like 3d6 down the line or something. And he wanted there to be spikes and dips in the numerology. So he wanted players to possibly have extremely low and extremely high stats, and you kind of don't get that because of rolling 3d6 down the line. So that's why I chose the d12 plus d6. But anyway, your 3 virtues are vigor, clarity, and spirit, and then you roll guard. Your skill at avoiding wounds. The start. Oh, that's what the d6 for. It's not. It's something gold doubloons. Guard. The start that you choose for your company determines the dice that you roll, and then you roll or choose a knight. And I'll turn to the knight's page in just a minute. Looking at you guys here. No, just have the camera off. You don't need to look at my ugly face, especially when I page these PDFs. Don't worry about it. Yeah, the camera's just off, and for some reason it won't go into 1080. It's like stuck at 720, and I don't know why. And I think it's because of how Restream goes across 3 platforms, because I'm on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube simultaneously, and it always pushes it back down to 720. And I can't get it to stay up there. Not without problems. Let me put it that way. So, when you make your knight, and there's some pretty interesting tables here. We're going to get into those tables. So you'll roll or choose your knight and what kind of knight you're going to be. And this gives you property or items that you brought with you, an ability, like a special ability unique to your knight, and a passion, a special means you have to restore your spirit. So healing in this game is not just about like finding someone to lay on hands. It can be indulging in your passions, or seeking a seer to give you even more knowledge, things like that. So of course every knight has a dagger, torches, rope, dry rations, and camping gear. Every knight knows 3 feats, and then every knight has sworn the oath to seek the myths, honor the seers, and protect the realm. Of course, on the same page, you may have squires. Small companies of 2 knights or fewer may give each knight a squire. That's basically if you have a small, like if it's just myself and there's 2 other players, you can give them a squire. They serve as apprentices, or not yet knights, so cannot gain glory or perform feats. Feats in this game, not quite similar to feats in Dungeons and Dragons, but they are like special abilities that you're very good at. And they could be like gifts. They might be semi-mystical in nature, but most of the feats are very combat-oriented. And it talks about for each virtue and your guard. And the squires have like 2d6 for each virtue, and they ride a pony, carry a dagger, and then roll d6 for extra equipment like a cudgel, axe, hatchet, short bow, shield, or 3 javelins. And when they're knighted, they gain d6 in each virtue, and they can become a player character. So let's move here. Let's go to basic rules. So the basic rules are pretty simple. You roll a d20 and you want to equal, or anyway, here we go with saves. Saves are your primary action in this game. So to pass a save, roll d20 equal or below the relevant virtue. Failure means a negative consequence, not always a failed action. So you could roll a save in this game, and even if you fail, you succeeded in what you were trying to do, but there may be a negative consequence of that action. So example, you might be in mounted combat and you're running away from like some frothing at the mouth hellhounds or something, and you need to make a roll to take your mount and leap across a ravine or something. And normally we would think, make a save or whatever, roll your stat below your stat, and you either make it across the ravine or you don't. And instead, it wouldn't matter what you roll, you will make it across the ravine, but the negative consequence of that could be dropping something out of your pack, or your mount sprains its ankle and slows down, or you make it across the ravine and you lose your helmet, or you become lost, or something like that. So it doesn't necessarily mean you just automatically fail. It just means there might be a negative consequence, like you succeed, but it's the yes, no, if, and or buts of consequences in indie role-playing games. Another thing that is different in this game is that when dice are rolled for damage and there's multiple attackers, when you roll, you take the highest die of all the dice that are rolled when there's simultaneous attacks. So players may gain some kind of benefits, or they may have an ally, or their squire helps them to attack. And unlike most role-playing games where everyone just rolls all their damage dice and it just stacks, and instead, because the numbers are very low in this game, when you have multiple dice, you're only picking the highest die of your multiple dice and then adding on any benefits or modifiers. Turns are pretty easy. Something else that is very simplistic is a turn is enough time to move and then perform an action, always in that order. So you can't have an action and then move later. You're always moving and then making an action, moving and making an action. So if you close with an enemy, you must first move to the enemy and then close with them and then perform your action before being able to say, like, withdraw from that combat or move back out of range or something like that. And it talks about surprise and being impaired and different types of damages. But the more interesting thing is, we'll get to it. The more interesting thing is that what kind of knight that you make. Even here with the rules for death, even the boldest knight can die a sudden or ignoble death. Prepare yourself for this. When a knight dies, the player creates a new knight and they are added to the company as quickly as possible. Alternatively, they may assume control of a squire or follower. So, yeah, very OSR. There's a good chance you may lose your character, and then you'll just pick up another one, and hopefully maybe carry on that legacy. Here we talk about harm and scars and virtue loss. So, virtue loss is a bit different than just suffering damage. So, you had your virtues like clarity and all that, and then you can, as your virtues are reduced, you suffer under certain conditions. So here we have, like, if your vigor goes to 0, you're exhausted. If your clarity goes to 0, you are exposed. And if your spirit goes to 0, you are impaired. And then there's scars, of course, you can have in combat. And there's a table of those. Recovery and how to recover your virtues. And then let me see if I can this here. It goes into this document goes into how to recover your virtues when you lose them through adventuring and going on quests and myths. You can consume a specific type of remedy. There's a list of remedies. Perform a specific action or skipping to a new season. And yes, you can adventure in seasons. You can adventure during, like, the winter season, the golden season, the harvest season, things like that. The growing season. Vigor is restored by consuming sustenance or spending a full day in warm hospitality. Clarity is restored by consuming stimulant or receiving guidance from a seer. And spirit is restored by consuming sacrament or indulging in a passion. So you can very much see that this is definitely about being a knight, right? And what I like about this is, of course, it is very cinematic and very immersive. So it's not you getting a healing potion. It may be that, to get your clarity back up, you got to go see a seer or consume some kind of stimulant to get your mind right. And again, the seers, of course, are there as an excuse for the game master to, like, here's some more information so you can go on more quests and whatnot. And then goes into remedies. He talks about how to carry those remedies. Let's go into knights. Creating harms and scars, combat. And we'll page through these real quick. So, of course, we have here harms and scars and what happens when you're damaged and gaining scars. through your adventures. There's specifics of combat, how to do combat. Again, all you and your players could all be on one page when it comes to combat and how to adjudicate combat and what happens if you're suffering from some kind of condition. Right here, there's a generalization on feats, smite, focus, and deny your against your enemy. And then if we go down just a little bit, if you smite, release your righteous fury. Focus is creating an opening to exploit, and deny, rebuff an attack before it lands. Right. But then down here we also have gambits, and gambits are like your special maneuvers, if you will. So gambits are things like, and some characters have ability to engage in some gambits better than others, but gambits are things like bolster an attack, move, repel, stop a foe, impair, trap, dismount, other effects, things like that. So like you could, knock away someone's shield so they can't use it, or dismount them, or knock their lance out of their arm so they have to go to their side weapon or something like that. Grappling happens to fall into gambits, things like that. Maybe you're surrounded by like 5 bandits and you want to separate them by finding cover or whatever, things like that. Then we get down here to arms and goods, and the kind of armor and arms you're going to wear. Talks about trade for finding common, uncommon, and rare items. The types of armor you're going to wear. Even goes into, there we go, right here, goes into different types of armor, like common armor, like a shield such as a round kite or heater shield. Uncommon armor like mail, Gibson, flexible armors. Types of helm, whether you're wearing like a kettle, nasal, bucket, or coif. Wielding weapons, and if they're long, hefty, things like that. Common weapons. And again, this is a quick start rules and doesn't go into a lot of detail as far as how they're used and what they're used for so much, but you have to just use your imagination. And does it pull from mythology and reality? Sure, but doesn't go into a lot of details like which weapon is the better. There's whole YouTube channels based around like which weapons are best, how were they used, what age were they used in. This is a cinematic version of being a knight. So rare tools like here we go, like alchemy tools, crystal ball, extravagant harp, things like that. And it just says etc., right? Because based on the myths that your players go through, they might find other strange and rare items and whatnot. Not all of them magical, but specialist weapons, poisons, sacraments. Here we have a ton of OSR random tables, and this goes into people and the realms that you're going to be traveling through, and talks about like the average individuals in these locations, the myths and stories that are in the uncharted lands, and the kind of individuals the players will be encountering, whether they're common, uncommon, or rare, and who they are. Like, just talks about seers. Seers are those who understand the nature of myth enough to glimpse into the future. Their visions grant legitimacy and direction to a knight's quest, and they know when a squire is ready to become a knight and when a knight is ready to seek the city. And again, even capitalize the city. Like, what is the city? I don't know. Depends on your imagination, right? Like, what is the city? Like, we're thinking like a metropolitan city. Is the city the safe haven against the dark parts out there in the unknown? The answer to that is yeah, based on you and yours. And this is creating realms, and about like it literally says here, breaking the rules. The guidelines on this page make for a typical realm, but all of them can be bent or broken in creating your own realms. And realms are basically like if you're doing a hex map or a point crawl, it's basically creating those landmarks. And it even gives you tools to do that. And I'll show the there's a diagram on how to make one, which is kind of cool too. But it talks about like dwellings, sanctums, monuments, hazards, curses, ruins in each of these hexes, and how to navigate them. And let me see. Here it is. These are the sites. And leave it right there so I can get to your comments. When a knight dies, they name you Sir Strong and turn you into a flesh golem. Yeah, maybe. Nameless Spook says, I do like a system where there is possible to succeed but still lose a bit. Me too. And you know what? A lot of times, even though in a tabletop role-playing game, it can be a little bit complicated when you just have a rule that says you suffer a consequence, and all of us are looking like, well, what the hell does that mean, right? But honestly, a lot of our favorite stories are just stacked consequences, really, if you think about it, right? Like, very rarely do we see in storytelling, when I like television, movies, graphic novels, anime, like very rarely is it success or failure. Normally what ends up happening is like our favorite spy is in a heist and they break into the room to steal the files. But when they get the files, they find out that the files not only is it not what they were thinking, but it's, I don't know, there's a chance it could be corrupted. So now they got to take that file and have it hacked by one of their best friends, but it's going to take 24 hours. And in the meantime, they're being hunted. So now they're on the run, but they also have to find another guy to get some weapons. And then they have the montage scene where they're like opening up a bag of weapons or in that secret room in the back, and they're putting all the weapons on their shoulders and hips and strapping themselves in. And then they're doing another thing, right? Like it's basically a bunch of stacked problems that our heroes are trying to navigate around. Now, this diagram here is pretty interesting. I don't know if I would memorize it, but it is pretty interesting. So how this works, and again, this is a one-pager, right? So a nice journey largely focuses on traveling great distances to seek the guidance of seers and uncover myths. Okay. However, on occasion, there may be the need to zoom in on a single hex or a specific site within a hex in more detail. And so how they do it here is you draw 6 points as corners of a hex with a 7th point in the center. So imagine this diagram here is a hex. So number 4 at the bottom is 1 point in the hex, and then there's a blank spot at this upper portion of the hex. But anyway, you can see how it's numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. All right. Okay, so I get that. So mark 3 of these points as features with a circle, areas that give information or set the mood. So in this example, you pick 3, make 3 of these circles, and those are features. And then you mark 2 as dangers with a triangle, places to navigate carefully. And those dangers could be anything, right? It could be environmental, there could be dangerous bandits out there, monsters, man-eating plants, doesn't matter. And then you mark 1 as treasure. So 3 features, 2 dangers, 1 treasure, and erase the final point and assign numbers to the remaining points, all right? And then you have routes. So then you draw, routes are connections between neighboring points. So draw 3 open routes with a solid line. These are straightforward paths between points. Draw 2 closed routes with a crossed line. Here, something blocks the way, so creative thinking is required. And blocking the way doesn't mean a wall. It could be, like I said, a ravine, a raging river, environmental. Blocking the way could be something man-made. Something blocking the way could be like an illusion or a riddle or whatever. And then draw 1 hidden route with a dotted line. This path is only found through specific exploration of its connecting points or local knowledge. And I think this is actually kind of a really cool, on the fly, 2 hours before you're running the game, prep for a hex. So you have, let me highlight this at the very top here and go all the way down, right? Essentially, it's 3 features, 2 dangers, 1 treasure, 3 open routes, 2 closed routes, and 1 hidden route. And let me go back to the diagram here. And that's it. So you've got 3 circles for 3 features. You have 2 triangles for dangers, and then you have basically a diamond for your treasure. And then you have 1, 2, 3 lines that are open, 2 that are blocked, and 1 dotted line for a hidden feature. That's actually kind of cool. It's different. I like it. I like it. I like the creativity in it. And then here it talks about this. The right side of this page talks about what was created. So the hidden entrance, locals know of a second landing requiring careful piloting through rocks and caves. There's an entrance, a small cove, a safe landing spot on the island. And then and all these are just named. Number 1 is a stony beach overgrown with toxic black moss. Number 2 is a tattered rope bridge over jagged rocks. Carrion gulls harass travelers. Number 3 is a cave revealing a small harbor and twisting cave out to sea. Number 4 is a former shrine to the sea overgrown with black moss, now the tomb of the salt seer. And number 5, a waterlogged cave, swirling currents sweep away anybody not secured. It's a tunnel to number 6. It's flooded by raging waters. And then the last part, number 6, the salt seer's hoard, valuable treasures, and his eye of the sea. And it's not a lot of detail either, so it's kind of cool. Anyway, I think it's just one of those things where you're like, oh, huh, I like it. This is about refereeing. Just it. Drew says, the stacked consequences thing is why I designed my own system differently, abandoning the paradigm of competency we have in the hobby. Yeah, and it also is based on, like, you know, some games are so heavy with the consequences that it can get a little bit too it's like when you get like 27 stacked consequences, you're like, yeah, at a certain point maybe we don't need this, you know. I suppose it's the opposite way. Like I'm gonna pick one, Powered by the Apocalypse, but this happens to be in a lot of games that use mixed success and failures, and that is like if you include it in every single die roll and every single adjudication, at a certain point it causes mental fatigue. Like, I just want to know whether we succeed or fail, and that's where you have to like really reinstate, like, okay, it's not that you need to do it all the time, it's that it's there as a tool. If you just want to see if the person picked the lock, yes or no, you can absolutely do that. So here on the side, you know, each of these is a page. So we've got like sites that I just did, refereeing, which is another page, time. Each one of these is one single page. Here in our time section, again, it talks about like how long a day is and what kind of seasons there are. And yes, when you play a knight, you play through their life and fill in the gaps with the quests and myths and things like that. So, for example, when we start here, a day has 3 phases. There's morning, afternoon, and night. A year has 3 seasons, such as spring, the green season, harvest, the gold season, and winter, the gray season. And then it just gives you some details about what that season looks like the harvest season, right? Warm, starry nights, chirping crickets, drought, and thunder. Begins with the Feast of the Stars, a night of honors, unions, and contests. Mid-harvest sees Elder Mass, a secretive assembly of seers and trusted associates. And that's it. That's all the information you're given. And you're like, well, what the hell's an Elder Mass? Right? Like, is that old people engaging in some kind of Catholic thing? I don't know. Is it a bunch of elderly people engaging in secret, I don't know. Who knows what the hell's going on in that thing. You can make it up on your own. I could be a little dirty, but that's where my mind goes, but whatever. Winter, and then life has 3 ages: young, mature, and old. And then when significant years pass, characters move into the next age. So you can go from young to mature, mature to old. And when you're mature, sometimes your virtues can go higher, but when you turn old, your virtues can reduce. So you get into, it's like, I gotta set you better set your legacy now before you get too old. Someone takes your kingdom. And then lastly, on this other part of the page of time, it talks about advancing time. At the end of each session or during a natural break in the journey, the group decides how much time will reasonably pass, whether it's like none, weeks, months, or years. And if uncertain, there's a little table here, of course, like a little oracle if you want. And then in between seasons, there are things that the knights can do, such as a pilgrimage, courtesies, and then service. And then between the ages, what can you do? Restores virtue, gain 1 glory and choose 1, such as like duty or succession or legacy. And then there's unresolved situations. Like what happened, does something go unresolved? Like, I don't know, choosing someone, to rise up into knighthood, or maybe there's someone that's nobility, whatever. Of course, there's travel. Got to have yourself some travel. And again, traveling from hex to hex, I just showed you how to create little intricacies in the hex for the different sites inside of the hexes. And then, and it talks about like whether you're at a trek, a gallop, or a ferry, like on a boat, omens that come up given to you by the seers. There's exploration, lay of the land, navigating, fighting off vagabonds, meeting vassals, finding seers who know about the realm and to lead the players into new places, using your vigor, clarity, and spirit as you travel, because those are your stats. Dominion. So who rules the dominion? What's going on in that dominion? How do the knights involve themselves in the crises of that dominion, and how to create them? Like, here's a crisis role: calamity, dilemma, or prosperity. And then there are different types of crises, such as, and you can see there's some list here on the right, like chaos, like lawlessness, debt, famine, misery, panic, doubt happens. And then on the left side, we have the council, prestigious seats that must be filled for a domain to run smoothly. Though you may grant and revoke these roles, those who are scorned rarely go quietly, such as like stewards, marshals, sheriffs, envoys, circles, and giving the players the responsibility of supporting or ousting people in certain councils and the courts, who they are, and just gives you some examples of like how to run that. And like I said, very light one-pagers, right? Authority: players may be in positions of authority or have to follow authority, and what you do, like mustering troops. And mustering troops goes back to war. There's a warfare page in terms of, maybe the whole point of the players is to travel the land to muster troops, collecting taxes, courtly conflicts that happen. Here it is. Every season brings drama. Here we go. Spark tables can help to describe this role to see whether you're involved in it or not. And then, players that don't want to be involved in it, what kind of consequences happen after that. Drama in court, conquest, grand designs, basically for NPCs. And then here we get into our OSR tables. Kind of cool. We'll get into the knights, because you can roll in the knights table, and you can describe what it means to be your knight. So anyway, the majority of any realm is wilderness, where even rough trails are a rare sight. And so you're like, I don't even have the creativity to come up with these different places in nature. So what am I going to write down? So these are prompts. 2d12 on a spark table, and combine the results for improvisational prompt. So you're out there in the wild. Here's a table for land and sky, and what's the water like, and the weather, and the flora, and the fauna, and features, wonders, otherworldliness about those places, and just use those as sparks, right? And again, random tables, civilization, and coming up with civilization and what people are like. Rare havens of timber and stone filled with joy and turmoil, and 2d12 tables. So when the players travel to another place of civilization, what is the holding like? What's the bailey, the keep, the food, the goods, the luxuries? Just with this free, just using some of these random tables, I think you could very easily translate this over to other fantasy tabletop role playing as well. Goods, luxuries, drama, what's going on, woe, news, and just mix and match all these subjects. And each of these D12 tables is doubled up. So I can't do the math in my head, but with 9 D12 tables, no, there are 9 categories, double D12 tables. So technically there's 18 D12 tables that are each random. So I don't know. I can't do the math on that. How many different combinations there are. But whatever. People, coming up with different people. Knights, seers, vassals, and vagabonds are all more than just their role. And then, of course, people, voice, personality, relationship, desires, tasks that they're doing, background, their ailment, their heraldry, if they are a knight or something, or belong to a royal family. Random tables. Here we have combat. Anything can happen in the chaos of battle. So, what kind of soldier, weapon, maneuvers that they're using, conflict, duel, if there is a duel going on, and what kind of duel it is. The battlefield, details about the battlefield. Deployment for your warband or enemy warband. Strategies, events that happen during that time. And then knights. And this is the table where you get to roll, like, what kind of knight are you? Roll D6, D12, read the D6 first. Pages list the D6 in a pair, because there's other than this free part in the book, I guess it's done in a different manner with pentagrams and things like that. And so these are all the different knights, and you can describe the kind of knight that you are when you roll on these tables. So of course you can pick and choose, and just picking some strange ones, like not strange, but just random ones. Like there's the Bloody Knight, or maybe you're known as the Lance Knight, or the Cosmic Knight. One above it, the Violet Knight. What does that even mean? I think violet is a royal color, purple, violet. The Fox Knight. I see the Talon Knight, the Saddle Knight, the Vulture Knight, the Free Knight. These can also be NPCs, and rumors can spread about who they are or what they are. Let's see, we've got the Horde Knight, Ghoul Knight, Dust Knight, Mirror Knight, Horn Knight, the Chain Knight, the Tome Knight, all that kind of stuff. And then creating myths. And let me get back to your comments here. Myths are basically like a prompt that is, through creating the different locations that they go to, the people, the knights that are around there, the vagabonds, and all that kind of stuff. A myth is like a rumor, but there's some veracity to the myth, and the knights are the powerful ones, the strong and bold ones that will go out there into the wilderness and discover what the myth is about. And so there are a table of a bunch of these prompts, and then you fill in what that means. Like, for example, let me pick. Okay. The Colossus. What is that? Is that a statue? Is that a big burly person that people think is an ogre? Or is someone constructing a monument to, a lost god? Is the Colossus itself a big statue, but you can go into it and there are people living inside of it? Is it are people scared that the Colossus may roam, but really it's like a mechanized wood and stone and iron structure that people have created or something? Or people feel that the Colossus is something from a lost age that was once huge, but no one understands how it works or even why it works or something like that. But it's covered in moss and vines or whatnot, et cetera, right? And some of it can be problems. So we have like the goblin, the wheel, the cudgel, the lizard, the spire, the hydra, and all of these lead to myths that the players may uncover, whether it's far more arcane than they thought or far more mundane, but they resolve the myth. Stories are told about what they've done to resolve that myth, and then it leads to their glory. So yeah, do the players fight a real lich, or is it just this old person that was misunderstood out there in the wild, and really they're a seer, basically living to their last age, almost nearly undead, living 5 lifetimes, just to wait for the players to show up to give them a bit of information and whatnot. And the players are like, did you defeat the lich? And they're like, the players may just come back and talk about their glorious trial or quest or something, and the lich gave us information that led us to a new age. Yeah, the lich did pass on, but gave us this document or whatever like that. It's called democracy. And they're like, I can't believe you said such things. I don't know. Nameless Spook says, I'm not sure I'm interested in playing the game, but it's a great world building book. And that's exactly right. Like I'm very, I'd like to collect things and have my mind sparked by a thing, even if I'm like, nah, I don't know if that really fits for me. And I'm with you there, Nameless Spook. Like, do I want to play I'm going to say the word, a night emulator, right? Like, do I really want to play that? It sounds like it's a little bit limiting. And it is kind of, right? Because this is literally a game about playing knights. So you're not playing a wizard, you're not playing a thief, you're literally going on quests to go uncover myths. You're literally fighting in armor, probably mounted against other enemies. And yes, are you having treaties with monsters that people think are monsters, but really it's just someone who's misshapen and misunderstood? Are you eliminating enemies that everyone else, your classic knights, right? It's the knights at the round table. And I could see this game being like a ton of like stacked one-shots. Like every game is like, well, I am the Green Knight, and I am the Moss Knight, and I am the Knight of Cats, and we're going to go out into the wild, tell a story, come back, and be like, hey, this is what we did, and then don't pick the game up again, and 3 months later it's like, hey, why don't we play some Knights? Let's go to Mythic Bastionland and then do this thing, right? I could see it very, what's it called? Procedural game. Not procedural, episodic, where like it's a bunch of people that are knights, and then every once in a while we hear about the story of one of the knights. There's a movie that was just released about the Green Knight. Well, it didn't tell the story of all the knights, and it told a complete story, but it was about that one knight. Sir Galahad, that's one knight. King Arthur, that is one knight, and so on and so forth. These are example characters and knights. And not knights, NPCs. This happens to be a knight, and that you could use either as a player or use it to as an adventure spark. And so like this says, the plague, they sang, flutters in the air, splashes in a stream, lurkers in the blood, the uncaring terror of our time. And then it talks about omens, right? This attaches to the night, where an old coot, I haven't seen the word old coot in a long time. You old coot, proclaims their dreams where foul air was choking people in their sleep, pleads for help spreading the word. Or moaning in the mist, An ivory-cloaked shack home to a dying old couple. Their daughter left to search for treatment. And that's it. There's no, like, well, who is this person? What happened? You fill all that out yourself. And then the snare knight. Oh, sorry. If, as you can see at the bottom of this page, where we went over the rules for creating your own site, it is even here. Like, the dwelling has shepherd fields, the sanctum is a whispering brook, the monument is a royal statue, a hazard is a choking woodland, the curse is icy mist, and the ruin is a burned village. And then all that's put together to make kind of a story, like what's happening in this place and who does it involve. These are basically adventures, right? The snare knight immersed within the woods, a sheriff of natural order. And there's the image of this knight who's more of a woodland dweller, knighted by the swollen Seer. And what does this even mean? The swollen Seer can only be moved by feats of engineering usually reserved for siegery, sees within the minds of huge beings, wants to grow ever bigger. What does that even mean? Like, what is a swollen Seer? Is this a heavy person, or a tree, or I don't know, a giant? Who's to say, right? And then it goes, here's the wall, and there's a whole bunch of these. And then at the end, there's a knights. These were all the different types of knights you can confront out there. Then the myths, knights, myths, and adpocriphia. Adpocriphia? Apocrypha? What follows are the records of a single scribe, chronicled accounts with insight to their adjudication, that we might shed further light on the laws of this world. And this is the play structure, and it just goes through. I'll show you the first page here. Talks about start and scope. So the left side of the document are the players, the referee, and the players that are playing, and then the right side of this is from the creator of the game, and talks about basically like best practices. Like, this is how I would assume it goes, and it even goes into a part where and there's a number of pages, because if you take a look on my very right, I'm on page 54, and it goes to page 74, so it really goes into depth. Like, all right, so if we're starting the game at start and scope, how do we decide what that is? And these are the words from the creator on the right side of the page. Talks about character creation, and like, he starts out by saying, when getting the players started with the game, I like to get them rolling their character as soon as possible, before I even start telling them about the world. The things they discover in making their character will get them immersed in the world right away. So that's of course from his own personal opinion. Talks about getting bad rolls. Teaching the rules, and thoughts on teaching the rules. Right here, players may be relieved that they don't need to learn the rules immediately, but some may worry that they're going to make a critical mistake without knowing all of the details of how the game works. Yeah, it's not a complicated game, but it is so different from classic fantasy D20 that because even my brain has to like stop and unlearn a thing to learn another thing. But yeah, again, also I think if you're someone who doesn't want to run this game, if you just want to keep it in your back pocket to like make if there are orders of knights in your fantasy realm and you're stuck with how to do it, you could absolutely grab this and go like, oh, you know what? I don't know, a Knight of the 7 Roses or something. What the hell does that mean? Roll some more dice. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm inspired to do this thing. Here it even goes into it goes to the back and forth. What I like about the hey, here are the getting rules wrong. So here's just one page. I'm gonna stop it here, and then I'll say goodbye. Again, this is old school, where on the right you have all the play-by-play with the players and what's going on, and then on the other side is the creator of the game talking about, like, if you get the rules wrong, like what are some best practices. I kind of like that. I like the idea of, like, oh, so you're playing a game, but you forgot a rule or did it wrong, or, like, do you retcon it? How do you portray that and stuff? And for especially for newer players, it can give them some incentive to go, you know what, you're not going to get it right all the time, and how should you react as a player, and then how should you react as a referee to the action that was just taken, and your players' reactions to that action that was wrong, and what do you do? And so anyway, kind of cool. Getting stuck, basically backing yourself into a corner, things like that. So kind of cool. Sorry, and going back to your comments, and then we'll get out of here. Hilarious. Yeah. Shai says, democracy. You take -5 penalty on all rolls, right? Yeah, I mentioned that. Hey, here's a document called democracy. They're like, burn it. Drew says, in this case, I'm fine with you calling it an emulator, since that is the impression I got from the game as well. You're fine. I'm picking with you there, Drew. I like to pick because it's cool. I like to be challenged too. So, Death Angel Shadow says, to be honest, several of the Kickstarters I got into were just for material to pull from: tables, maps, creatures, adventurers. Exactly. And listen, let's not. Collecting is part of the hobby itself. Whether it's like supporting somebody you really like, even Lene Spook agrees with you, right? Sometimes being part of the hobby is supporting the hobby. And, every once in a while, something sparks our imagination, and we're like, damn, I like that. Death Angel says, Knave, for example, I got for the table. Oh my God. Knave 2nd edition, that book, damn, what is it, like 4 D100 tables per page, or something like 80 tables in total? So you're getting, it's wild. But yeah, Knave is like one of my go-to pocket things if I'm stuck. It's that good. Singing for the Plague, they still do that today? Old Coot. Yeah, I sure am. Yeah, it's 45, old enough to have been old Coot in medieval times? I think so. I'm sure. I'm like in my mid-50s, so I'm sure, like, I'm in the old age of being a knight. Yeah, CNC, yeah, Castle Crusades. Yeah. It's all the above. The Swollen Seer probably can be whatever you think would make it interesting fiction. Exactly. Now, who's to say the Seer is a small, frail individual, but magically can't be moved? Like, literally, you can't pick up their chair. They're sitting on, like physically they can't be moved. That can also be a thing as well. It could be illusory, that they aren't a physical being, that they are stuck in this stone temple or something like that, or a cave, shallow cave or whatever, and there's no way to. The Seer can't leave because they're cursed, and it's like maybe there's a stone there carved with a rune or whatever, and if you pick the stone up, the Seer follows the stone as a spirit or something. Yeah, and Drew says, in that regard, I have to say the ambiguity of their terms fits a mythic flavor. And it is supposed to be a myth, right? Like, it's weird to say this, but I think the Mythic Bastionlands is supposed to land like the mythology of our world, right? Like, there might have been a real person that really did this thing, but it's kind of left in myth. It's almost like, this is weird to say, but it's almost like adventuring in ambiguity. So it isn't real until you confront it. And even after you confront it, did it really happen that way? Like, you roll the dice and let's do the whole the role-playing game stuff, right? TTRPG bullshit. But at the end of it, hey, I rolled some dice and had a fight with a knight and there was a seer there. But when the words are spoken by other people, did it really happen that way? I don't know. Are there any games where you play a zombie? Not a wraith, mind you, not a vampire, straight up zombie or ghoul. I bet there is. I don't know of one. Now, mind you, I've got games where you do play like vampires and wraiths and things like that, but a straight up like zombie? I don't know. That'd be kind of interesting. Nameless says, for sure, it requires a different mindset than a lot of games people are used to, but these lighter detail games can be a lot of fun when you get past that know the rules hang up. Exactly. And in a weird way, it's kind of a backwards thing, right? Like, picking with Shadow Dark, even though we're talking about Mythic Bastionlands, the ambiguity of what sparks your imagination is the point, and sometimes we can get in arguments about that point, but it's weird because it's kind of like that is the point. Yeah. Yep. There you go. Yep. Into the Odd and Bastionland are great succinct designs too. The author pioneered a lot of simplistic but deep rule set that inspired so many indie games. Thank you there, Mateo. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like there's an art to writing a game where everything you need is on one page, because the art of that is to get rid of all the extraneous stuff. And to be a designer, it's like, I need to get this information to the players, but at the same time, I don't want to confuse them. And you want to leave enough space open to let the people playing the game make up their own thing. And it can be very difficult to let that go as a creator, right? You're like, but I want the players to do this. And it's like, nope, it don't belong to you no more. You gotta let them do their own thing. You're so funny there. It's swollen too. Yeah, Chris McDowell. He says, I think Chris McDowell coined the phrase spark tables. I've never heard it referred to that way, but I think it is. 2 weeks, 2 days until I hit 52. I'm a 54-year-old. Average life expectancy is mostly just higher today because of the massive reduced infant mortality. Yep. Plus, we're not in as much danger as we used to. Yeah, trim the fat, get to the point. Yeah, trim the fat. There it is, and get to the point, right? And sometimes the words that we pick, this document by Chris McDowell, Shadow Dark, Blades in the Dark, a couple of Knave, a lot of them are like, listen, we're going to pick up a specific word and use those words and or phrases to get you in the mindset to do the thing, right? So in this game, like, there's myths and omens, and when you say myth is different than an adventure or like a dungeon, right? Nameless says, as to the myth idea of the game, it's an age before phones and cameras. Everything was spread by hearsay, so it makes sense it would all be way out there. Yep. And how it's described, like, it's one of those things where I was talking about picking with the movie 300, the 300 Spartans, and it's like, well, we know in reality that the movie 300 did not happen that way. But if everyone there, if everyone there thought it happened that way, then how can we say it didn't happen that way, right? If you were on that battlefield and you saw giant ogres with blades instead of hands on their forearms, and everyone said they were 15 feet tall, then in their own minds it was real, so it really did happen that way? You see what I'm saying? Like, no, in reality, it couldn't have happened that way. But in the eyes of the people that were there and the people that it was told to, because actually 300 is actually told it's actually narrated by a storyteller. So technically the movie 300 is given to us by someone else who's describing a battle that happened. So we actually never get to see the battle. All we're hearing is we're getting a visual montage of what the Spartan who got his eye cut out said to everybody else. So it's kind of weird. It's kind of a Kaiser Sose moment, right? Karen and Morkborg, such. Yep, I agree with you. Yep, and I have those. I'm waiting for my Karen second edition to come in. I've got my Morkborg versions in the back. Maybe I might pull them out one of these days. But okay. Sorry, holding you guys too long. So Mythic Bastionland. I'm going to page to the front page of this document. Mythic Bastionland is if you want to play a knight, these are quick start rules. If you want to play a knight in a world where you and yourself are in a circle of knights and you're going out to into the unknown wilderness, or make treaties or gather war bands, and you're playing the true armored mythological knight and telling stories, then this is kind of the game for you. Also, if you're someone who wants to use like a lot of rules and have a lot of spark for your creation, this is also the game for you. We are doing a travel log a little bit around our world of games that embrace the culture and society of the place that they are in. So this game is a specific paladin, cavalier, knighthood, warrior style game of a particular time and place. Mythologically, sure. Cinematic, sure. But this isn't going to really translate into like ancient India or ancient Japan or the ancient Scandinavia as it would in the cinematic mythological realm of Central Europe. And so this is what that game is. We're going to travel. We're going to do a little travelogue around Europe and down into Africa, games that are built in and around the culture or the society or the histories and the histories and of the people that live there, hopefully written by the people that are there. I probably have a couple games where I'm mistaken by the creators of the people that live there, but I apologize, I'm wrong. I just love games, or at least my goal is to find games written for the people by the people that are there, and to get a different point of view and how do they play tabletop role playing games. I think it's kind of cool. So this is Mythic Bastionland. In general, it's kind of Eurocentric-ish, so it's a bit vague about where it takes place at on purpose. But yeah, like Arthurian, it's very extremely Arthurian myth. I suppose you could, if you could make the case that it does fit into Great Britain, France, Germany-ish from my armchair standpoint. Spaniard-ish, you could fit it into. But it's really the armored mythological warrior of who's taken an oath to protect the land and the innocent peoples and destroy the evil monsters out there, and to know the difference between the two. There's a lot of human beings that are pure monsters, and a lot of monsters that are innocent. And so being able to figure out between those two and tell those stories. I think it's kind of cool. So we will find other games. I don't think Morkborg fits into this, although Morkborg, and yes, I'm mispronouncing it because I feel like Morkborg is the title of a type of game and a gaming style versus the proper pronunciation, which is like, I've heard it pronounced Merkbore, but I think Morkborg is hyper specific to the tabletop role-playing community versus Dark Fort, which is an actual word, which is like Mukbore, something like that. I've heard it pronounced. I know I'm butchering it, but yeah, I do have something from Karen that is Jewish related, which is kind of cool. Beyond the Pale. It's actually an adventure. Well, it's an adventure setting, so we're going to do that one as well. But yeah, maybe do we want to stay northward? North Mediterranean. We'll stick to the Mediterranean. We'll do Mediterranean. We will do North and Middle Africa. Maybe circle back around through like Israel, Syria region, because I have some games that kind of dwell into. Yeah. We'll do that. We'll do a spiral, is what we'll do. Maybe we will do. Would the Genesis meet in this? I just thought about it. The Genesis, the post-apocalyptic Mediterranean tabletop role-playing game. I wonder if that would fit. I think they are a German design group. Of course, the employees there probably come from all different places, but I think that would fit. I also had yeah. So anyway, long story short, ethnic, historical, cultural role-playing games. I love them. And if you want to put them in your back pocket, go ahead and check them out. So guys, have a great one. Thank you very much for being part of the show. Thank you very much for letting me show these things off and just coming in and hanging out. So if this sparks your imagination, you want to pick it up. Again, it's a free quick start. So if you can find it, good for you. I've had this on my computer for a while, and at least 2 years now. And it's just been sitting here. So, but you guys have a great one. I will see thee later. Have a good day. Tomorrow we will go further into the Mediterranean and Northern Africa, and then circle back around straight up there. Maybe go up into Scandinavia, the Nordic realm and whatnot. Maybe not so much Viking, because we kind of did that a little bit, but maybe some other things. I wish there were more games that were more like from India and Mongolia, Thailand, Burma, places like that, but we'll see. I'll do some more research as well if I find something, or you guys give me a great one. I don't think this is going to show up the way you think it. Nope, it didn't show up. Oh. Well, thank you. Yeah, hope your last arbitrary fraction of eternity gets off to a good start. Everyone, have a great one. Here today in the States, we have a holiday, so I am off work. I work a federal job, so many state, local, district level, federal, whatever, we are on holiday for just today. It's weird to say it that way, because we call it a holiday or the holiday. We don't just call it holiday, just like we don't call things university. We call it like the university or a university going to. It's weird. I love it. Anyway, guys, have a great one. I'll see you later. Peace. Bye. I'm gonna let you go.